Welcome to Three Grown Girls, a podcast where we discuss issues that affect women as they navigate the 21st century. This is a space created by Jamaican women to discuss topics of importance to us. We're talking relationships, money, career, and the varied things in between. Through it all, we encourage women to live their best lives. As women in our 40s and with the benefit of hindsight and experience, we nurture this space, a safe space to explore the lived experiences not only of ourselves, but also of others. Our co hosts include yours truly, Petre, the cool, calm, and collected voice of reason, or, so I'm told, the candid and spirited Caroline, who says what others are thinking but won't say, and Sarah, who always holds us down with an analytical and spiritual viewpoint. Thank you for joining. We are happy you are here. Now, don't forget to share this podcast with a friend and stay tuned. Hi!
Hey,
Hi, ladies.
How my homegirls doing? You guys were recently in Jamaica having a ball.
I
yes,
know, right?
Jamaican nice.
Very, very nice.
It
And
hot
hot.
though, but it nice.
Right? You really call Sarah, Carol, Sarah and I, we had a whole conversation before she came in about the heat in Jamaica.
Oh, Lord.
Actually contesting it that the place it can't so hot and da 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 da. And then now Sarah can testify.
No man, it
Oh,
that
Lord.
bad.
Yeah,
Hot,
it's
hot, hot.
blazing hot.
But it nice.
But it nice. All right.
Okay.
So it has been a minute, ladies, that we've recorded an episode. And what
Yeah,
we're discussing this evening, or we're gonna have a little chat about, is this thing called work-life balance, which I think has been a part of our problem with not getting the episode recorded.
yeah,
I think the truth is that we exist in a time and in spaces where there are deliberate efforts to get workers to leave the office when their shift is done,
Yeah.
take vacation, as you guys recently did, when it is due, and seemingly incessant talk about the soft life. And the soft life, for our listeners who may not be aware, is described as a life of so-called ease, peace, comfort, and intentional happiness.
With which
mm.
money? All
It,
right.
it does not require struggle of, we're told, the soft life,
That
nor
bad.
does it need stress or distress, and consists of mutual relationships, clarity, and self-care. So, at the same time you have this set of realities, however, there remains this tremendous pressure to make the paper, right? Everybody out there try to dig out the money from all corners, left, right, and center. And not only to afford the soft life, but also to meet those ever escalating costs associated with living your life, right? You're talking
Mm-hmm.
about your food, your clothes, your mortgage or your rent, the car payment, your education, that kind of thing. So, where then does that leave us as we contemplate tonight's topic, right? Which is work life balance, pie in the sky dream, or practical pursuit. By one definition, and there are a few of them out there, work life balance is the state of equilibrium where one equally prioritizes the demands of one's career together with the demands of one's personal life. The issue is, or the question is this possible? How is it possible? What works against work life balance? What works for work life balance? And so these are some of the things me and my girls were going to talk about in this episode. So, ladies, according to the ILO, work-life balance is concerned with the distribution of time and effort between work and other aspects of life. Do we agree with this definition? And what is our take on this definition? Right? This idea that work-life balance is concerned with the distribution of time and effort between work and other aspects of life.
I think in principle, that definition works because when we talk about balance, we're talking about balancing our personal life and our professional life. So in principle, it makes sense. But in terms of, and we've had this discussion, when we were talking about the topic, and it was hard for us to come to a consensus. So work-life balance is where we're trying to achieve greater balance between our work life, of course, and our professional life. So I feel that sometimes it can be misleading in terms of our career and personal lives do not always exist separately. So we're talking about having a personal life and having a professional life, but can we separate them like that?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't they basically exist in the same, hemisphere? So when we think about it like that, I'm not sure how we can achieve that realistically, even though it's something that has been touting, all over. People are talking about getting work-life balance. And I think what we're talking about is, finding time to be present at work and finding time to be present, in your family and your other commitments. So how do we do that? So I think that is where we're going to be discussing today. So work
The,
life integration is, it's important, and I know it's a concept that we have been going on about for a while,
Yeah.
but I'm not sure how we're going to be able to separate one from the other so that we can discuss them separately as two separate entities. Not sure if that's making sense.
yeah. And I like this ILO definition because it's broad, in terms of highlighting that it's really about the distribution of time and effort between work and other aspects of life. Where the definition get tricky for me is when you get down to the nitty gritty, right, of what
Mhm.
that really means in practical terms. And I have been seeing competing definitions, right? On the one hand, when people talk about work life balance, they're talking about being able to optimally achieve everything that you want to achieve at work and achieving everything that you want to do at home, and you being
Right.
able to find a way to be optimal in both. But then there's a other competing definition that more says it's about knowing when to stop one to do the other. So you may not necessarily be optimizing both, right? But say, okay, I have this thing for work on this weekend. But me and my husband, we're adventurous and we want to go out, we want to go explore, we want to go travel, we want to do these things. Is it me being able to do what I need to do this weekend for my job, as well as go out with my husband, right? Or
Mhm.
is it knowing to put down the work and say, no, me not work on this weekend. I'm gonna go out. You know what I mean? So that is where it's been challenging for me in terms of, is it optimizing both or is it knowing when to stop one to pick up the other?
Okay.
Mhm. I mean, I think you guys make, sort of a valid point of view on this. I too sort of like the definition insofar as it helps to kind of, it gives us it gives us the parameters for what we should be looking at. Obviously, what's going on in your workspace, and obviously what's going on in your private life. I think the implication of the definition too is that somehow you are to, well, the suggestion, it would seem, this is what I'm getting from it, that you need to have, where the balance comes in is somehow spending an equal amount of time in those spaces. And for me, I think it has less to do really with the amount of time spent in the spaces, right? Or giving attention to those two aspects of your life, the personal part and the work life, and more about how you are feeling when you're operating in the space. So
Mm,
Right.
if you're at work and even if you're spending 2 hours, the truth is that you could be spending 2 hours there and feel super harassed,
yeah.
right? Or you can be spending 20 hours there and you don't feel bad, you feel okay.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
Right.
feel like if you're feeling okay, I think for me that is the balance.
But you
And
cannot
that,
feel okay and still a burnout in a P.
right. So this is the caveat I have for it. No, that again, this is why I like the definition, because it calls your attention to it. Because the fact is that if you spend excessive amounts of time at work, or if you spend excessive amount of time gallivanting, you are predisposing yourself to getting into some trouble, right? It means that if
Mm-hmm.
you're off gallivanting, you're not going to deliver your stuff at work, which means that you're going to come under some pressure from your boss. And at the same time, if you stay at work all the time, then you're going to come under some pressure from your family and your friends. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think you need to onboard the amount of time spent, but I don't think that is where my own concern is weighted. I think it's about how you're feeling as the
Yeah,
individual
I
operating
agree
these
with that.
spaces.
I definitely agree with that because when we talk about work-life balance, we're thinking more so in terms of, having that time to spend with your family and your engagement and your social life. But if you enjoy the work that you do, if you like being at work, you like to spend hours at work getting your work done in that environment, why are we worried about whether or not it is balancing? If it is balancing for you, that's okay. So to achieve, better balance between your professional life and your personal life boils down to priority, and questioning your assumption about what you should be doing and whether or not you're happy doing it.
Yeah.
So when we look at it, and again, it always depends on where you are in your life. So achieving work-life balance is not going to be just a one-time fix and it's done.
Right.
It's always going to be a cycle of, where do I want to engage? Where do I want to spend most of my time? Where I am in my life right now. And it will evolve as you go along. So for some people, it becomes more important to spend a lot more family time, right? So you might have little ones, you're newly married or in a relationship, and you're nourishing that. So you want to spend a lot more time on that. On the other hand, if you're a new professional and you're trying to get yourself out there and you want to develop your profession, then it's time to reason that you might spend a lot more time at work. So it's prioritizing and figuring out where you are in that cycle and how you're going to manage your time.
Yeah. Fully on board with that, Carol. Yeah.
So, having said that, how important is work-life balance to you guys?
Well,
Especially where you are now.
for me, it's very important. Um, it's very important for me to have time with my family and my friends and to hang out. Um, I have friends. I mean, as Caroline said earlier, we're all at different stages, right? And in our 40s, work life balance is looking different for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Um, if you had kids earlier or you never have kids, your life will look very different than if you waited and your kids are now still young, like elementary, high school.
Right.
And if you add in the fact if you have to be looking about aging parents, that's something that we know have to start thinking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
um so I have some girlfriends that honestly sometimes I don't know how to do it, because it also have to do the type of career you're in, right? You may be in a very demanding career, or you may be in one that's not so demanding, where you can shut down your laptop at 5 o'clock and it's okay, right? But for
Yeah.
those who can't shut down the laptop at 5 o'clock, or they have to travel long distances to go to work, I am seeing some of my girlfriends really struggling, while you have others that are just mellowing now. The kids are older, they're comfortable in where they are with their career, so they're not struggling as much. You know what I mean? And but for me, I never wanted to be the one to experience burnout at work. You know what I mean? I always wanted a career that is flexible enough where I I have leisure. Leisure is very important to me, even if it mean Netflixing. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Leisure is very important for me, for my mental health, and just for me, Sarah, to feel like I'm having a balanced life. You know what I mean? I want to go to my job and give my very best, but at the same time, I want time for leisure. I want to go with my girlfriends. I want to go watch a movie with my husband and my son. I want to do those things. So for me, it's very important.
I am there. I think certainly as a breast cancer survivor,
Mm-hmm.
I've become super preoccupied with the, achieving work-life balance and what that really looks like. And you talk about mental wellness, Sarah. We're running a campaign now at the ministry looking at that, this whole idea of doing your share and so on. And a big part of the consideration really is, if you are off balance, you are gonna have problems, and that's an absolute fact. And so I really think that quite a lot more people are preoccupied with this business of work-life balance. I mean, we might be trying to find that sweet spot, like you guys said, depending on where you are in your based on your age and stage. But I think a lot more people are giving attention to it, because you realize that where you're off balancing anyway, you are not going to live sort of the optimal life that you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we all fundamentally, that is what we want, to live the best life possible.
Yeah.
And that comes with achieving some semblance of work-life balance.
Yeah.
Right.
So for me, it is super, super important.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's, we're basically saying the same things, because where I was probably 20 years ago in terms of, career advancement and wanting to have that, professional career and all of that, and where I am now is really two different stages.
Me
So
too.
at this stage, for me, work-life balance is going to work, and thank God working from home, and being done at 4:30.
Yeah.
And
Ditto.
I'm done with you until tomorrow, unless we have a special project going on or something that requires extra attention. But generally, work-life balance for me, and why it is so important, is that I am so aware of, my mortality. I'm so aware of my
Mm-hmm.
age. I'm so aware that I am almost half century, and we don't have a lot of time left. And where do I want to spend my time and energy? I
Yeah.
want to travel. I want to spend time with my man. I want to spend time with my friends. I want to,
Yeah.
spend time with my family. I want to do things that feed my heart. And I find, honestly, work doesn't do that for me anymore
Right.
on the
Yeah.
scale that I thought it would have. Right.
Mm.
So there's a lot of things that changes over time. And for me, I think work-life balance is so important. And interestingly, it became a lot more important since I've lived in Canada, because it
Mm.
is something that is practiced so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you go to work and you see that your director, your CEO, everybody takes your time off, right? It's now is the summer at work, and we actually we have a calendar of who is at work,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Because everybody's on vacation.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's very
From
important
so,
in
so, you-
Canada.
so
Yeah.
what you find, you don't feel guilty about taking time off. I was talking about it the other day. Back in Jamaica, and I don't know if it's still the way it was, or maybe it was where I was in my career. Taking a sick day, you feel guilty.
Hmm.
Taking a personal day,
You
you
feel
feel
pressured. You
guilty.
feel
You
pressured,
feel
like you'll
pressured.
get in a trouble.
Yes.
Yeah.
And even when you take the day, you don't even enjoy it, because you're thinking about, Lord, me never gonna work. What if somebody
Yeah.
sees?
And yeah. I
Kind
know
of
the boss.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes, here, if I get up with a cold and I'm not going to work, I'm going to call and say I'm not feeling well. And nobody's going to pressure you to say,
Hmm.
um, really, you can't, everybody's like, don't worry about it, feel better. Right. So you
Yeah.
get into that habit of understanding that people take their health and wellness serious. So why shouldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that is part of where I am in terms of the importance. And I have my mom here with me for the summer. My sisters were here, and I just wanted to be off. I don't want to think about work. I just want to enjoy my family and my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, work-life balance is important to me.
Can I say though, guys, that there's another thing I want to throw in the mix, but to the point about how things obtain in Jamaica. It's funny. I was at a workshop, I think, in Barbados the other day, and it came up for discussion about how Caribbean people, and I really think it's a culture. I think it's a culture thing.
It is.
If we have a workshop, for example, we cram the day from dusk till dawn with the work, and you don't give your workshop participants an opportunity to
Yeah.
just breeze a little bit after a full
Yeah.
day of work. And
Yeah.
if the
Yeah.
workshop is 10 days long, it's 10 days
Mhm.
of the same
Yes, it's
kind
true.
of,
Oh Lord.
That
you
was my
understand? And so I
experience.
really
Yeah.
think it's I don't know if it's our slavery antecedents, I don't know what it is, but we do have this
Yeah.
crazy kind of so-called work ethic that
Hmm.
really locks us into a very uncomfortable
Yeah.
place sometimes.
It's
And it's
true.
unrealistic too.
And
It's
it's
very
very
unrealistic.
unrealistic. Yeah, and I don't think it's very useful. I mean, the other point I wanted to raise too is that one of the reasons I think work-life balance is important too is that we're seeing some stuff happening in the society too. The crime, the man killing him woman and shooting himself, our children, struggling in different contexts, maybe because mommy or daddy is so wrapped up at work all the time. And so, to the extent that we're seeing some of these things play out in our society or in our communities, I think is a kind of clarion call to say, look here, let's really think about what we're doing when it comes to work-life balance. So again, I think that kind of just underscores for us why this thing is so important to at least
Yeah.
begin to think about.
So,
Fairly.
we are us three we're agreeing that is important, but that some people say that work-life balance is overrated, and people are tired of hearing this topic, and we're talking about work-life balance, and if it's really overrated. Personally, I don't think it's overrated. um I think our generation was probably the first that is a go out and do everything. You can have it all. We were the go out and have it all generation. You can have the work, the husband, the picnic, everything, right? And when people started to face burnout now, you realize, say, maybe I can have it all, but how am I gonna have it all? Why am I burnout? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So which bandwagon in the depend? It overrated or not overrated?
Um, can I tell you that I think, like I said, we're all agreed that it's important, but sometimes I think some people get into a little extreme zone where they're like, oh, I don't know, like I must vacation once a year. So I think a part of the challenge when we get into the realm of thinking whether or not it's overrated, and I don't think that it is. Again, if we think it's important, it cannot be that it's overrated. But I think people's pursuit of it can sometimes, if they're not careful, get a little bit wonky. So I think you need to check yourself and say, all right, do I need to go on 10 vacations for the year? Is that satisfying? You understand me?
Yes,
Or
yeah, I
am I
do.
gonna,
I do. Yeah.
you need to self-regulate. And so I think for me, that's kind of where things get a little shady, because some people are kind of like some extreme case, you know?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't even know how to answer that question. But as it relates to it being overrated, I can see like persons like entrepreneurs who are starting a business, or small business owners, or people who have a stake in having people at work and having engaged employee might think that, why is it so important for people to have work-life balance? But I don't know if it's overrated. I don't know. I don't think it is personally. And again, I think people should have that balance, and sometimes the scale might be tipped in favor of the career or the professional life. Other times it might be tipped in favor of your personal life. And I think it depends on your priorities and where you are in your life and what works for you, right? Because there's really no one size fit all to every single scenario. Right.
Exactly.
So it's basically just what work in your particular situation. Now, if you have people who are trying to do everything, and, as Sarah mentioned earlier, we are the generation that felt that we could have it all. And I don't think that's possible, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's possible to the extent that we try to do it,
Yes.
right? Being the
Hence the
superwoman
burnout.
thing always get on my nerves, because I don't think it's necessary, to be honest. And I don't think it's good for our well-being.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
yes, you want to have a career, because not everybody wants to stay home, as we would have discussed in other podcasts, right? But you might not be able to be on 24 hours a day. So it's
Mm-hmm.
just about prioritizing and, utilizing your community to help you in term when you need that kind of help and so forth. So I don't think it's overrated at all. I just think it's something that we need to understand where we are in terms of our priorities.
Hmm.
So, ladies, we've said that work-life balance is important, and obviously we believe that because we're discussing this topic, right? Whether or not it is overrated is a whole lot of kettle of fish, right? We're not so sure what's going on there.
Peter, we know why you say it's overrated. Go on.
I'm not saying it's overrated. I'm not saying that
Like,
at all. I'm
where
saying
is
we have
she
to
right now?
self-regulate, right?
Like, which
But
building is she in
but
right
but
now?
right, I'm in my office. I'm in my office with 3 computers on my desk right now.
Lord,
I know, it's terrible. And my husband just called me to pick up our daughter. So yeah,
And
thank God
that's why
for the
she's
husband. They
pressing
get
the
a little
point
off
of
balance. Sorry.
us- she's
Yeah, so
pressing the
thank God
point
for
of
husbands. Good husband. When they get off
thank
balance, they back you up. They help you out.
Yeah,
Yes,
thank God for
yes,
husbands. But that's
yes.
actually pressing the point saying it's
Right?
really
So
how you
so so the
feel when you're there.
all right, fine. So here's the thing. We've said it is important, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how is it possible? Because it's one thing to say we need to have work-life
Yeah.
Yeah,
balance, and here are some of the parameters. But
right.
how do you get there? Particularly when you have the harassing boss, you have a culture issue, as we see in the Caribbean, you have many financial obligations and so on. Or you may not feel that you have access to enough, points for recreation and so on. How do you get there? How do you get this work-life balance, whatever your perception of it may be?
I think all right. Again, we have to look at it again as it relates to individuals, right? Because we're all at different stages in our life. Some people are slowing down, some people are just starting, some people career is just picking up. So it depends on where you are in your life. It also is going to be dependent on, the financial support that you have, the economy that you live in, and so forth. So saying that it is overrated, saying that it's important is one thing, as you have said. But how do we actually make it happen? When a lot of the scenarios might not stack up the way we want them to stack up. So I think it's about, taking step to understanding when you're being burnt out, taking step to understand when you need a break, and being very deliberate about doing all of that, right? You might not be able to separate them the way, it is expected in terms of always when you're at work, and when you're at home, and you're at home. But when you put finances in the mix. People want to buy a home, people want to drive a car, people want to be able to have a standard of living where they're comfortable. How do you get that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do
Um,
you get that and still have that work life balance that you're striving for? It's going to be challenging.
yeah. And I would agree with you, Caroline, that it all comes down to the individual. It might sound like a cop out answer, but it
Yeah,
really is, right? All right, my life, for example, where I am now in my career and my home life, work life balance is very achievable for me. My
right.
job is flexible. I have one child and him father very hands-on, right? So it's very achievable for me. But I have friends, as I said earlier, who are struggling, right? Honestly, sometimes when they talk to me, I feel helpless. Like I wish I could help and I don't know how, because they're doing good in their career, stressful careers. I have one friend in particular, she have one son just graduate university, right? He's like 23, one about to turn 18, and a 6-year old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that she have three kids and them spread out, and it's hard, right? But I think it requires
It
sacrifice.
does.
if
Yes,
if if
it does.
you are, if you're in a position where your job is demanding, like I said, for my life it's easy, right? But for, if it's not for you, it will require sacrifice,
Yeah,
right? If you have a lot of kids and a demanding job, to be optimal in both. And as I said, don't forget the parents, because we're at that age now where we all have to be thinking about, either we have to be looking about parents now, or starting to think about looking about parents and what that look like. Are they living with us? What we are doing with them? You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say for it to be possible, P, to answer your question, it will require sacrifice,
it
and
will. It will.
it depends on
Mhm.
what you want to sacrifice. Some women say I'm not sacrificing time with my kid, right?
Mhm.
Some women say I am just reaching where I am in my career. I've been
Yes,
wanting this. I'm not slow down,
Yes.
yes, yes,
right? But then it come down to the quality. So probably sometimes it's not so much the quantity of the leisure, but the
Mm-hmm.
quality of the leisure. You understand? Put more quality in that home time, even if it's small. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? But I would say it requires sacrifice.
And P, before you jump in, just to build on what you're saying, Sarah, I think, a lot of times we don't consider our alternatives, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you can't just jump into, I need work-life balance. if it's not possible, or
Yeah.
it's not something that you can afford right now, because it's something that you have to be able to afford, right?
Well, that's
So
true
you have to
too.
look at, what are some of the things that I can do to have a better quality of life, with my personal life and my professional life, especially if you're just building a career. I remember the other day at work, a job came up, right? And quite a few people were telling me to apply for the job. And, I thought about applying for the job, but I'm thinking, knowing what the position entails, it is going to mean that 4:30 is no longer the noon, is not the
Yes.
On the
normal for me,
table.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm
Okay.
going to have to go to all these meetings and travel to do all these things. And I'm thinking, do I want to do that?
Mm-mm.
And I was thinking about the money. And I came home and I was telling, Ernest about it, and he was saying, do what I think is best. And when I thought about it, and I was excited at first, like, yeah, a step up, whatever. But when I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it
And
because it
I
is
would be
going
that
to
person to
affect.
Carol. I would do
Yes,
like you too.
exactly.
Yeah.
It is going to affect my quality of life.
Mm.
Honestly, it is. So, we have to look at what the solutions are and whether or not it is something that we want to do. And I've seen people not take positions because of the demand of it. Right. And
Yes.
at the time I was thinking, really, more money, especially a significant jump in salary, that wouldn't be me. But where I am now, it is really not only about money. And I can say that because I am not just starting out.
Right.
If I was just starting out, it probably wouldn't even have been a discussion,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So it's just about, again, figuring out where you are.
Mhm.
Yeah.
No, I think you guys again solid. I mean, I'm there with you. I think personally that, and again we've said it, that this thing is important. I think it starts there. You talk about how is it possible to get work-life balance, is beginning to recognize first and foremost that this is something that is important. It's important for you to pay attention to.
Yeah.
And then I think too that people need to self-regulate. I mean, we've kind of been
Yes.
talking about it the whole time. You can't be in the office all the time, no matter what. You
It's
can't be
true.
out there gallivanting all the time either, right?
Exactly.
So you really do need to kind of self-regulate and figure out when you're kind of going off the beaten track a little bit on either side. And then you need to be intentional. I think you ladies have said it, that
Yeah.
you have to say, no, I have to close the computer now and leave the office. Or I have to go spend this weekend out of town at my mother's house with my family and just take a walk by the beach and relax.
Mm.
And then you
Right.
mentioned the thing about cost, Carol. I think a lot of people don't
Exactly.
realize that, look, it can be expensive, depending on how fantastic you want to be. But the truth is that leisure doesn't have to be super costly. It
Yeah.
can just be blocking a few minutes every day to just sit on a little bench outside your house, right? And just take a chill pill, read a verse out of your Bible,
Yep.
or read a book.
Yeah.
Or
Watch
like just have a
Netflix.
conversation with
Don't
your
forget
friends,
That's
right?
our
Netflix.
Netflix,
Yeah,
right?
or Netflix and chill out, right? Or get a podcast going with your friends.
Bap
Exactly.
bap.
Right?
It
So
is,
I
yeah,
don't think it has to be overly costly. And so sometimes I think people tell themselves that, boy, I can't afford a trip to
yes,
Miami,
yes,
or I can't afford this or that. And then they then invest all of their time being at work
being at
without
work.
spending or carving out some time for the family. And then that becomes problematic. So again, be intentional, know that it's important,
Yeah.
self-regulate, and then understand that you don't always have to cost a whole heap of money. Find something where you can do for cheap to spend time with yourself and with your family.
Mm-hmm.
I am there for that. So we're always talking about women issues, and a lot of the discussion that we have center around how we feel as women. So what are some of the challenges that you think women in particular face in realizing work-life balance? Especially in relation to their male counterparts. Do you think that women are able to achieve it more than men, or what? What do you guys think?
I think more pressure is on the woman, right? And I'm saying this from anecdotal evidence. um I've not read any study to suggest this, so I say that. But when I look on my friend's life or my own life, even the most hands-on husband or daddy, the hands-on like the mother, and that's what I see in my friend's life, right? Then I remember everything about the kids, and when the ball drop, they don't feel as guilty.
Mm-hmm.
You see, when the ball drop for anything, for me, for Amari, oh
Sorry,
my
you're too
God.
wicked. Let no stay so. Let toe to toe. Boy,
No
I'm not
man,
tell a
he's
lie for my
no, no,
friend.
no man, no man. Like he's very hands-on. I mean,
Okay, so say that thought.
I did say it.
Me never get a part there.
Right? There's a certain things that mommy, me no know. There's a certain things where we quicker to pick up. We are quicker to you know, even though my husband toe to toe with me with everything, but still there's just certain
Yeah,
things that are we, and I think we feel more guilty when the ball drop.
I
When you
think that's
forget say
true.
when you forget say today a hot day and crazy socks day or the project due and the
Yeah.
project you never work on the project with the pitney, I think we carry more of the guilt.
Mm,
Nothing is an option for us, but even the most hands-on of man, you know. And I think they're usually very career focused.
yeah.
Gonna think. I think they're more career focused
Can,
than us, guys.
can
Not
I say to you
necessarily
that
though.
this is not my point of view on it. So I think that both sexes, and it's kind of interesting coming from because I'm a feminist, but and interestingly, I have a awesome husband, like top ratings for him toe to toe with me every step of the way too. In fact, he's probably more involved with our daughter than I am. I swear to you, I swear. But I think both sexes, when it comes to contemplating work-life balance, I think both sexes have challenges. I think, as you've hinted, Sarah,
Yeah,
for men, it is the preoccupation with making the paper. How much time am I
And
yeah,
spending in the
providing for the
office?
family.
Yeah,
yes,
to get the family in the financial position that they need. And there's this immense stress on them to do that. And then
yeah,
for us, it is, am I satisfying my husband enough in terms of the time spent and so on? Am
Yeah.
I there for the children, etc., etc.? And so I feel like all the time, both parties are in this little struggle,
yeah.
weighted on either side of the coin, depending on what's going on in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
because sorry, Carol, go.
No, go ahead.
No, I was saying because not to say we don't want to go there and make the paper too, but I
Yeah.
think providing for the family, I think the men carry an extra burden with that.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think they might be a bit more career focused when it come on to the work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you. I agree with both of you. And just because when I have man for helping with picnic, me have man for helping with the dog. Where we not buy yet. So I am going to preempt and say that Ernest is going to be very hands-on with our dog. Okay? All right.
Oh dear.
So,
And
Mm.
I can't manage.
but
Carol, why you do it?
but seriously though, I agree with you to an extent. And I always think and always remember I don't have kids, so I don't feel that kind of pull that you guys feel, and I kind of get it because most parents will tell you the same thing. But
Mhm.
men, I don't I there are lots of women out there who are very career driven too, and
Yeah.
that is
Hmm.
their focus, right? So I know that's a lot of what we're
Yes.
doing is generalizing, but we
Right.
have to remember that some women actually are the ones who are going out there, while
Oh, that's a true,
the male is the one who is really doing the child rearing and all of that. So
Mm.
remember, there's been a shift to that, where
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's a lot more stay home husband that you used to have and all
Yeah.
of that. So um the work life balance that we talk about, it is always going to be easier for men to get that kind of balance, I think, than women,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
right? If
yeah.
you're looking at it purely as at face value, because women, work-life balance for women is having that time to more spend with children, to, as Sarah say, get the feeling guilty when they don't get to do all these things that men don't feel. So they have more of a time to really relax when they are off work. While
Yeah.
women, when they're not working, they're still working.
Yeah.
Sorry, ladies, to the point, and this is also like a caveat to what I said earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing about men, and again, I think you've both alluded to it, is that while they feel more burdened, honestly, they really do,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more burdened from on the financial front. The truth is that the culture helps them to feel better about being at work. So it's not like they're like at work and agonizing about going home. The truth is that yes,
Yes,
they feel pressure to be there and so on in some instances, but the culture is such that they're not harassed about being at work.
true.
Yeah,
Whereas,
yeah,
whereas women now,
yeah.
the second shift that we have. So after you go to work and bust your ass, and the
Yes,
no, I'm serious. It sounds funny, right? It's
it's
part of my
true.
friend.
It's
You bust
true.
your butt on the job. You then have to go home, bathe baby, fix up what. Yeah, and like I said, even if your husband is super hands on, there are some things that women are sort of more
Yes,
tuned
Yes,
into.
yes,
I
You have
think
yes.
to
that
do
is
the
true.
laundry. You have to
Yes,
clean up the house. You know what I
yes,
mean? Maybe you have to
yes.
cook the meal depending on the kind of household that you have. And so I think women then feel maybe a little
That
bit more
that yeah.
harassed.
Yeah,
And,
it's
and,
Yeah,
and
true.
I agree
unfortunately.
totally. I agree to,
Yeah,
and that is just women generally. You
yeah.
know, as you said that I one day this week, I think it was Tuesday, I came in. I went to work and I came home and I was just lazing around like I'm just going to go into my bed and sleep. And Master Ernest find himself up the stairs, bust the door, you know, cook. No, him got work, me got work, right?
Hey.
Yup.
Him coming in five, me coming in five. But
Wow.
I'm supposed to ask me if me not cook. I'm gonna share me and go cook, you know. But
It's true. It's true. Certain
it's
things,
just,
no matter how
you
hands
know,
on them is.
no matter
Yeah.
how
Yes.
hands-on they are,
Wow.
their work-life balance is always going to be a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me can tell
You
you
Yeah.
know?
straight up,
Yeah.
say, my
Yeah.
husband I gonna never ever notice, say, window treatment need for change. He
All
probably not
right.
even
Yeah.
notice that there's window treatment in the
Exactly.
house.
Ditto. Ditto. Yeah.
And I take it a little further too. Sometimes we are the one if I think about both parents. Me if I think about my mother and your mother. What we leave for
Yes.
your mother, what we leave for you. We
Yes.
lead even from
It's
for them
true.
mother and
It's
father.
true. That is so true.
Yeah.
But
And their family, we take on their family burden more than them.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, 100%,
So true.
100%.
Okay, so finally tonight then guys, what are your two best tips about work-life balance based on your own individual experiences?
I think for people who are not achieving, work-life balance, because some people are, obviously some people are not. So if you feel that you're not achieving work-life balance and it's something that you strive for, then you probably need to reprioritize.
Mm-hmm.
So once you increase your emotional awareness of what is happening, then it will help you to develop the tools that you're going to need to put your plans into action. So one of the questions I think is important to ask is, what am I willing to sacrifice and for how long? Right? And that is a question that we will always have to ask. And again, especially for persons who are young parents, persons who are starting out in their career and so forth. Am I willing to sacrifice time with my family to build that career? Or am I going to not build that career and spend time with my family and so forth? And that is a personal choice, that people will always have to make. What are you going to prioritize?
Um, I would say, and I've been saying it throughout
Mhm.
about being willing to make the tough choices and make
Yeah.
that sacrifice, like in my own personal experience, I've been very deliberate
Yeah.
to not end up in any sector that is not going to allow me to either one of two things: work throughout the day and lock my computer at 5,
Mm-hmm.
or flexible enough that I can work when I want. Right? So if I need to run errands in the day and I feel a gush of energy at 10 o'clock in the night, my job will be flexible enough that I can work on that report 10 o'clock in the night if I wish. I was very deliberate in not ending up somewhere where me I forgot start from 8 o'clock and then 8 o'clock in the night I'm still working. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where I'm now in my career, having had job where you're in charge of systems and processes and people and managing all of that, I am okay with not doing that again. You understand what I mean? I don't know what the
Yeah.
cards
Yeah.
hold.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what God have in store, but I'm okay with not being at that level again. Not that I don't want to do anything meaningful, I've said it on the
Right, right.
podcast before, and you guys know I want to do something meaningful. But if it now have to be managing
You
people
don't have
and
to be leading the
systems,
charge.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't have to be leading the
exactly.
charge, and I'm okay with that. But not everybody is,
Yeah.
right? Not everybody is. So I would say, really looking at your life and what's best for you and what is really driving you.
Yeah.
I could start a whole nother conversation as to whether or not the career is validating you, but we're not getting at that. That's for another podcast.
Yes.
But these are some of the things. But then it, we always say it comes down to the individual.
It
Because
does.
right
It
now,
does.
people love for their work. I work our hours when me with a wine. I watch Netflix. And that's okay. For
Mhm.
both of us, right? Right, P?
Yeah,
That's
no,
okay for
absolutely.
both of us.
And I mean, no, it's like seriously, like I think, and it segues into my own two tips for our listeners. One of them is, I think you need to be prepared to advocate for yourself in how you distribute your time, right?
Yeah.
That's a
And
good
You
your
have
one.
to be
effort
able to.
between work and other aspects of your life. And I think
Yep.
this point is underscoring what you ladies have said. Kara, you say, all right, ask yourself, what am I willing to sacrifice? What am I willing to prioritize? Right?
Yeah.
Sarah, you said, be intentional about what it is that you're doing. That is advocating for yourself.
You have
It is,
to.
it is standing in your truth and not having to justify yourself to anybody about
Right.
going at whatever point in time. And also checking yourself and know when you kind of go off the beaten path. So it's now what, 8:31. P need to leave our office now. P need to talk to ourselves and leave our office, right? And then when you get home, Carrie, you use the example with your spouse that if you pop down, you have how much hours at the office, and you come home and tell you say need dinner. You say, oh no, baby, that's nice. I'm exhausted. Your turn now.
Yeah.
That is advocating for yourself. And men can do
Yes.
the same thing with respect of their women. You know what I mean?
Right.
So advocate for yourself in terms of how you distribute your time. And then
Yeah.
And
the second and final thing for me is to come to a place of peace about work-life balance. Like,
Mhm.
I
yes,
like that.
we have had this discussion, so you realize that we are like a little anxious about it, right? We're preoccupied with it. But the truth is that, and you both said it earlier, ladies, sometimes work are going to take out 22 hours out of your day, no matter what stage of your life you're in. And at other times, you're going to be, leisure is all about 23 hours of your day.
Yeah.
That is fine. The thing is,
And I
just
think there's no right or wrong answer too,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's
True.
no right or wrong as
there
to
is,
if you
thank
spend
you
more
very
time
much.
at work or spend more time with your family. It's what worked for you. So there's no guilt in having to do one over the other. It's just what makes you balance and what works for you.
Yeah.
Precisely. So make peace with it. Find your place of peace. And no matter what the people outside might be saying, one way or the other, you just know that make sure that you check in yourself and you're okay with what's going on. And if you feel like you need to course correct in whatever aspect, then do that. But the point is
Right.
to come to a place of peace so that the pursuit of the work-life balance don't in and of itself become a problem for you.
Right.
Good
Haha. That's a
point.
good one. Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So all of that being said, listeners, we were happy to have had you. Thank you for listening. All right. Now take the time to find your own happy place. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.